Thank you, Ed. Welcome, Reverend Jackson. My name is Larry Lee, and I'm the curator for the Spotlight series. And I can't believe it is a little over a year when the board of directors reached out to me to discuss the possibility of trying to cultivate and generate new audience, the next generation. And the first thing that came in my mind was, well, how about a pop-up gallery? Let's show what artists locally are doing. And since then, we've put on about 5 shows very successfully and sort of packed the house, so thank you for coming in. I invited Maggie, and she is starting off the 2023 and year of the bunny, as I like to say, celebration with her wonderful exhibit that she sort of teased me about. She was like, I grew up where I was raised a little bit differently, and I want to call it a show Unity. And the more she talked about what this show was about, the more fascinated I was, because of how I think it tied in to sort of the mission goals of the museum and allowed us to do what Ed is talking about, sharing stories, even from as far as California to here, that also talked about how we also can join hands, right, and talk about ourselves as BIPOC, and then discuss our political selves as well. So with that, and the fact that Maggie put so much time and effort in what is essentially a new project, I'm amazed and I thank you. So at this point, I'm going to step out of the way because Maggie's inspiration for the project is here too. Her father, Eddie Wong, all right? So I'm going to let them give us just a little bit of details on what was going through and what inspired this show. All right, thanks.
Cool. Thank you, Larry.
Sure.
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, this is amazing. Thank you all for being here. I'm used to talking in front of a lot of people, but usually it's like a classroom setting, so the nerves are elevated right now. But yeah, just like sort of a brief overview of the show. It's titled Unity, based off of Unity newspaper, which is a publication that ran from 1978 till 1992. I remember this paper only by sort of like weird little kid sense memories of like going to the office that it was printed in, and also via not necessarily being in the office, but by going to childcare.
Before I do that, I want to say, I want to acknowledge Anna Whittington, who is Maggie's mother, who was a Southern belle, grew up in Greenwood, Mississippi, and overcame all of that to become a progressive and a revolutionary. And we raised her together. We gave her a lot of freedom, which was kind of scary at first, but I think we made the right decision. So Maggie is who she is, not because of me, but because of Anna, me, and lots of other folks. And I also want to thank Anna because she gave me permission to leave the league to work for Reverend Jackson. So for the next like 4 or 5 years, I traveled with him, and I lived apart from Maggie when she was born for the first year because I was on the road with Reverend Jackson. So I'm really touched that he's here today because he remembers Maggie as a kid.
Yeah, but you're like that. Like, if I have like a figure, like a paternal figure, like my dad, I feel like you're like this other kind of grandpa. Like your name like loomed in our household like to a different level. But yeah.
Okay, we'll start this. Okay.
Okay.
So you go ahead.
Yeah. So this is so on these pages are parts of the original articles in Unity, but then also transcripts of conversations I've had with other folks of my generation. I fondly call the red diaper babies, maybe my mom actually came up with that phrase. phrase. It sounds like a very mama phrase. So we're going to read through a bit of the conversation that me and Jennifer had together.
Yeah, Jennifer Chan is now in her early 40s, I think, and she was a close friend of ours. So I'll be reading Jennifer's part. These are just selections of their dialogue. So I'll begin. But back then, how did they do it? Was it posted somewhere or
Exactly, yeah. And was it, yeah. I was so intrigued about was there a spreadsheet at the office? Or all I know are these little bits and pieces, sort of how it was conceived, how childcare itself was conceived as a part of their work, or sort of necessary, an addendum to enable their work. Should I trust my comrade to take care of my children too? Or I trust you, or / just it's our duty. I don't know if you have a kind of sense of that logic, or what kind of sense of what your parents felt.
Normal childhood memories and what was probably not a totally normal kind of network. I mean, I always say that definitely I feel like an extended family. I have memories of playing with them. Faye and Peter used to host these amazing Halloween parties, like bobbing for apples, doing face painting, listening to Peter play the banjo and tell scary stories. And I remember laying in the dark, watching the shadows move as cars drove by the house. Great, short intro. And there's a lot more in these papers, which are actually sculptural elements, so I think Maggie doesn't want you to grab everything.
There might be some takeaways over there, and this project is ongoing. Hopefully someone someday will want to make a book with me. That's the hope. We're putting that intention out there. Yeah.
And you can also check out some of the old East Wind magazines, which I used to edit. And I've continued doing an online version for the last 5 years. So you can just look at that little the QR code and log into the magazine. So thank you all.
Living together. Living together.
Living together.
Living together.
Living together.
Living together.
Living together.
Living together.
Living together.
Learning process.
Learning process.
Learn to live together.
Learn to live together.
Brothers and sisters.
Brothers and sisters.
Without part. As fools. We must learn to live. Try more than Chinese chicken and French fries and fried rice. We have a lot to offer. And we know each other. One another is the wall, the other is the quilt. So we don't have pattern, but you have a big macaroni to take old dirty clothes, sheets and underwear and coats and all that. And she cut them out in pieces. They look like rags just on the wall. But you connect them together, it became a quilt thing, a beautiful thing, a power thing, a culture. In many ways, Chinese have a big piece of the rag, quilt, but they're not big enough to cover your butt. We need pieces, so we need pieces to come together. Repeat, we need pieces to come together.
We need the pieces to come together.
We need the pieces to come together.
Form a quilt.
Form a quilt.
Beauty, art, and culture. So that's our responsibility. A handful of us here, so we can change the world. We can change the world.
Change the world.
Change the world.
Change the world.
So this is a plate it's an original offset plate. So this was used to print Unity, the newspaper. So on loan to me. A lot of little pieces in here are on loan to me. But sort of then making some sort of material shifts. There's sort of scale shifts, but not material shifts. There's a aluminum cast of sort of first beginnings of this project, really, of playing with the actual newspaper itself. And then over here, there's the sort of copies, reprinted copies of Unity with some parts of the articles redacted, and then next to that, sort of transcripts kind of folded into the format of the original paper. An approximation of the structure of childcare. Some more pages of Unity are in the center with there was this section in it that was called Living Our Cause, and it was all about reporting out sort of like things that people were doing in their day-to-day lives that sort of connected to this like sort of Marxist-Leninist solidarity cross multinational kind of movement that they were reporting out from, but sort of like how were people living it. And so this article on childcare, not necessarily about the system that I grew up with, but just about sort of like the need to thinking about sort of that form of domestic labor, and then sort of a conversation between me and another person of my generation about sort of like what it felt to be inside of that system. Kids build forts. Forts are world building. That's what they were trying to do, right? We'll change the world. People we play with it. We play with our histories. And that is transformative, right? And like we also as kids use the materials that are just around too, right? And so a lot of the things around me was like getting together T-shirts and campaign buttons. Getting together was the arching sort of publishing entity that published Unity, as well as Eastman Magazine, as well as Forward, which was the League's sort of more political theory journal. It's where a lot more of the like analysis happened, where like Eastman was more sort of like Asian American arts and culture kind of reporting, and then there was also the Black Nation. That's okay, those can fall. The Black Nation and what am I blanking out on? Okay, great. Yeah, so that's getting together. And then the last little piece over there is like sort of similarly like kind of memories of being in the office in particular, of like where printing happened and a lot of this sort of movement building stuff happened. So yeah, there's your little overview. Here's your quick overview.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming.